So anyway, Satanic Panic. What happened was in the 80s, these women were in a constant state of agitation because they were breaking from the natural law, you know, the female bond to the baby. And at the same time, the deep state orchestrated a brilliant and evil thing where they would torture children in just the most bizarre and non-believable ways. And all of it, this was national, this was all across America, right? It all came from 14 total psychiatrists. Total. Look this up. 14 total psychiatrists. That's why when people say, how could NASA hide a secret that big? It's like, it's surprising the deceptions that people can do with the smallest amount of people. 14 total professionals were responsible for all of these cases, right? So they intentionally, and for 8 years, police and families and media reported on it, and all these things happen on, like, you know, just the most over-the-top examples of child abuse you can imagine, right? So as time went on, none of them were corroborated, and a lot of these kids, their stories would fall apart, or people wouldn't believe it, or there wouldn't be the evidence. You know, there wouldn't be like the buried baby in some field or something, because it was orchestrated to appear just so over the top that you had to listen, but yet over and over and over again, it wouldn't come to fruition. There wouldn't be a story behind it. And so that tapped into the human's deep desire to not be tricked and to not be humiliated. So it started changing the face of media. It started changing the face of law enforcement. It changed culture in a lot of ways. And a lot of people don't talk about it because you say Satanic Panic, you think witch trials. You know, you think mass panic. No, that was to set up an anchor reality that was different, so that later when people talked about it, the immediate trigger is oh, this is nonsense. When people talk about Satan hurting children, it's nonsense. Now we know, No. I mean, forget about just the wiki dumps and the Podesta emails and all that. I have a buddy who his whole job in law enforcement was he had to go through child porn and identify perpetrators. He had to quit his job. He's got some trauma around it, but he's a really good guy. The amount of child abuse and satanic rituals around children is mind-blowingly bad, horrible. And it's being revealed now that it's worse than you could possibly imagine, right? So what function did Satanic Panic play? It set a false reality across the whole country where if someone brought that up, they were immediately associated with a religious nut or a crazy person. So that way, it's just Boy Who Cried Wolf. It's one of the oldest stories we have, and it's for a reason. Like, I'll give you another example. Like, there's things that you can't imagine aren't true. Like, George Washington could never tell a lie when he chopped down the cherry tree or something. That was written by his biographer. That's historical fact, and the irony is so ridiculous that this one's funny because, you know, I like Washington, and no one got hurt with this one, but the story that he could never tell a lie is a lie. And so when people say things like, why would someone fake the moon landing? Like, why would anyone do that? The bigger the lie, the more power it holds, because that's how you can create a population that can't figure out reality. And they just desperately don't want to be humiliated. Desperately don't want to be humiliated. Because to face the reality, and I watched this a lot as a kid. My town is full of abused children, right? We had a Monsignor Fafaro, who was a pedophile. He was in charge of the whole Catholic system in Oswego, New York for 60 years. So the thing that pedophiles of a feather flock together. So over the course of even in just my lifetime, there's Father Chester, you know, Father Dan, all these priests where everyone knew they were pedophiles. Like, we would even joke about Chester the molester and all this stuff. It was so normalized. And this is why I have such a knowledge on this topic. It got to the point when it was nothing. because human beings have an unbelievable ability to adapt to whatever they're facing at that time. And over the course of 50 or 60 years, through just unbelievable mind control and trauma and guilt and shame and you know, I mean, he almost ruined the potential of me being a Christian for my whole life. Thank God I wasn't ruined because of these people. But the amount of people that would turn their head and not report anything. You know, a kid would say, you know, Father Dan made me suck his dick, and he said that, like, if I told anyone, he'd kill my dad and stuff like that. And people's reaction were like, oh, that's crazy. That was set up because of this humiliation technique, where it's like, it's so over the top. And after Satanic Panic and some of this stuff, people didn't want to believe something that they thought they'd be tricked. And I'm watching this unfold now with the moon landing situation.